And to our library program, Become a Bluebird Landlord. We have Barb Whipkey here, who is the owner of Wild Birds Unlimited, one store in Lexington Park and one in LaPlata. And she is also the St. Mary's County coordinator for the Maryland Bluebird Society. And we're going to talk tonight about bluebirds and how to attract them to your yard. Welcome, Barb, and welcome to all of you, especially our new people who are joining us.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining us tonight. I'm going to start the presentation off with a slideshow. We're going to kind of zoom through that, no pun intended. There's parts of it I'm going to go really quick through because I feel like I can cover it a little better by actually holding the product up and showing you the actual product. So I can show you that a little more in detail. So real quick here, let me get this on share screen. Okay, so we're going to be talking about the beautiful bluebirds. There's actually 3 species of bluebirds: the eastern, the western, and the mountains. The only ones we have around here is the eastern. So that's basically all we're going to cover here tonight. The eastern is the one there on the left, the blue with the rust on the center, the breast that goes down into the white underneath. Bluebirds are secondary cavity nesters. So when we talk about secondary cavity nesters, that means they're not capable of excavating a hole. So they are reliant on old woodpecker holes or nesting boxes that you provide. Of course, nesting holes are not as available as they used to be because we have come in and clear cut for parking lots and housing developments. So it's become a little more important that we help them out by providing nesting boxes. Bluebirds are mainly insect eaters. They also will eat fruits and nuts and some seeds, but they are not able to crack most seeds. So they need seeds that have already been hulled. So if you've tried our no mess blends, that's the kind of seeds you want to provide those. So sunflower chips, you don't want to be offering them the black oil, the safflower, things like that. They need seeds that have already been shelled. But offering things like those mealworms, suets, things like that are a great option. Bluebirds, we've always thought of them as preferring to nest in open grassy areas, but more and more we are realizing that we can entice them into backyards that are heavily treed. If you were to see my backyard, you would realize that it's everything a bluebird does not want. Very heavily treed. When we moved there, we bought 7.5 acres and we cleared just enough to plant the house. Definitely not a typical bluebird habitat, but that became my goal to get bluebirds there. So I provided the 3 things that bluebirds need: food, shelter, water. I always tell people, if you want to get bluebirds, the greatest key to bringing them in is in the winter, put yourself out a heated bird bath. When we say a heated bird bath, we're not talking a sauna. You're not going to give them a hot tub. Basically, you're putting a bird bath out there that has a de-icer in there. It's thermostatically controlled. It just keeps it above freezing. So the temperature comes on and off just to keep it from icing up. When you're the only house in the area that has a nice, fresh, clean bird bath, bluebirds are water-loving birds. So guess whose yard they're going to pick the winter over? Well, while they're there, they realize that you've got food that never runs empty. And oh, wait, look, this lady's got a house that I can live in. So when it comes February, birds are our first nesters of the year. So come February, when it's time to start looking, they're like, oh man, this guy's got food. He's got a nesting box. The water's always here. There's no reason to move out. So you start your first colony of bluebirds that year, and then it just continues to grow. So even though you don't have that open grassy area, you have created the perfect bluebird habitat. So you definitely can get bluebirds, even if you don't have what the books say you need for the perfect bluebird setup. So don't give up. The biggest key is if you feed them, we will come. We're going to breeze right on by this because I'm going to show you some of the different ideas for feeding them. Male and female, as in most species of birds, the males are the brighter, the prettier ones. That's actually for a reason. Most of the females in the bird species are doing the majority of the sitting on the nest. So we need them to be a little more camouflaged. We don't want it to be so obvious that they're sitting on eggs. So the male's going to be the bright one. Female's going to be more subdued. And also look for that little white eye ring around her eye. You'll see that when you see tomorrow in daylight, when you look at your bluebird, your female, you may have never noticed that before, but I'll bet tomorrow when you look out and see her, you're going to suddenly notice that white eye ring and like, wow, why did I never notice that before? But that's going to help you to ID that female going forward. So why we need to help them, as I mentioned already, loss of habitat. Every time you go down the road, you're seeing all of a sudden more trees down, another parking lot building, another storage building. I'm not sure how many storage spaces we need here in St. Mary's County. What is going in all those places? Cutting down old trees and snags. If you've got a tree that has broken off, goodness knows we had enough of those here last month. If those trees that broke off during that ice storm and snowstorm, you can leave that snag, go ahead and leave it. That's a great home, not only for the bluebirds, but the woodpeckers, a lot of the wild birds and other wildlife. It's not going to risk your home, your shed, your cars, things like that. Leave what you can of that tree and let the birds and the other wildlife make a home out of that. And then one of the other ones, especially with the bluebirds, their biggest problem, or one of their biggest problem, is competition from non-native species. And we'll go into that a little further. Any of you that have already been raising bluebirds, a lot of you have already dealt with those. And I will mention now that if you run into problems with those, definitely come in and see us and we'll help you out with those on an individual basis. Sometimes you have to get very diligent when you're dealing with those non-native species. We're talking house sparrows and starlings there. We'll cover that further on. Water, year-round access to that water. You can add a heated bird bath. That's the easy way. No, there is no solar heated bird bath, so you have to have access to an electric plug. So, just an extension cord like you would plug your Christmas lights in is what you're going to need. We need, for the solar, it just will not store up enough energy to run a heated bird bath. It would need enough to store it overnight to keep it running, to keep it thawed. So you've got to have an electric outlet to do that. Your other option is if you're home during the day and up early in the morning, that you can be out there early in the morning, putting water in, and then multiple times a day, refilling that bird bath. If you're doing that, please don't put warm water out. I know you think you're being helpful, but you really want the water to be about the temperature of the outdoors. So you want it to be cooler water. And then safe housing. Safe house and then protected by a baffle predator guard. And again, that's something I'm going to show you here in a minute. So I won't go into that too much here. When you're placing your bluebird houses, you want them about 150 yards apart. That's quite a distance. Reason is bluebirds want to make sure that they're going to have enough insects to feed their young. So they don't want another pair of bluebirds nesting within that 150-yard range. If you want to get a second house up and you can't get that 150 yards, you can try putting one in the front yard, one in the backyard. A lot of times if they're out of sight of each other, they will let another pair nest. I have mine placed closer than that. I know I will never get a second pair of bluebirds in those. Bluebird houses in our area, you will get bluebirds, chickadees, titmice, and Carolina wren. My bluebird house is almost always full in the summer months with those other species. They're not competing for the same food, so the bluebirds are fine with letting those other birds nest. And those are all native species that are cool to have in your yard. So I'm perfectly fine with that. I just know that there's only going to be one pair of bluebirds. I do have some in the front and backyard in hopes that someday I will get two pairs of bluebirds nesting at the same time. That's never happened. But again, I'm lucky to even have a pair in my yard, so I'll take it. And then house features, again, I'm going to go into that a little further when we take this off screen share. Biggest thing to keep in mind is never, ever, ever put your bluebird house on a tree or a fence. It always needs to be on a post with a baffle. If you've got it on a wooden post, we do have baffles it can still be baffled. The Maryland Bluebird Society asks if you're going to put it on a tree or you're going to put it on a fence post, please just don't put it up at all, because you are setting them up for failure. They're going to expend this extra energy laying eggs, and the raccoons or snakes are going right in there and get it. We would rather them try to find a safer, more suitable habitat than lay those eggs where we know it's not going to end well. So definitely, if you've got this cute little house that you just love and it's so cute there and you don't want to take it down, just plug that hole so nothing can nest there and still keep your cute house. I have a couple of those that are up that I just love, but I don't want anybody nesting there. So I have them plugged so nobody can even get in. They still look cute, but nobody can nest in those houses. They're just not suitable, safe for nesting. So the nesting process is a very cool thing to watch happen. So the first thing you're going to see, and this is already starts in February, the male starts looking for a house. He's going to go, if you've got a couple houses, he's going to go from house to house. He's going to watch them for a few days. He'll sit up in the tree or a shed or roof. He's going to watch those houses until he finds what he thinks is a suitable house. Or maybe he'll pick a couple that he thinks are good choices. Then he's going to go and bring the female to check them out. This happens the same way every year, and it's really cool to watch. He'll come flying over, brings her to check it out. She goes in to check out the house. He'll be up on top and he'll be chattering to her. He gets down, looks in the hole like, what do you think? Do you like it? Is this a good one? She's going to be in there quite a while. I always say it's like she's figuring out the furniture position or something. And she'll come out, and then they'll go and look at the other one. Sometimes, not always will this happen, but it's pretty cool when they do. If she has chosen the house that she's going to pick, a lot of times she will take a piece of pine straw and place it in that house. If you go out and check one of your houses and you have a piece of pine straw, that's their rent deposit. That means they have chosen that house and they're letting the other birds know that that's their house. They're not ready to start building yet, but they've chosen that and that's their nest house. It doesn't always happen, so don't get disappointed if you don't get a rent deposit. All of a sudden, they may one day just start building. If they leave a rent deposit, don't get disappointed if it's 2 or 3 weeks later and still nothing's happened. Sometimes they'll leave that rent deposit and it's weeks later before all of a sudden she gets the urge that, okay, the egg's ready to drop. I better start building the nest. Sometimes it'll take her only 2 or 3 days to build that nest and lay the egg. Other times it takes her forever to build that nest. Sometimes the nest gets built and they disappear for 2 or 3 days. That's when we start getting the calls or the emails. I think something happened to them. They disappear. And they will disappear 2 or 3 days. That's when I say they're off on their honeymoon. All of a sudden, they reappear and she lays an egg. And we see it happen all the time. I have no idea why or where they go, or whether it's that last little hoo-ha before they lay the egg and they know they're tied down for a while. But we see these same things happen very regularly. So, if you see that happen, the rent deposit gets laid, nothing happens for weeks, don't get disappointed. What you may see is they've chosen that box and then they're just sitting there watching it, but doing nothing. They are basically guarding that house. Mine have chosen their box. The other day, a chickadee made the mistake of landing on that box. All of a sudden, they both flew in and chased that chickadee off. So I know they've chosen the box. I checked today. They have not left a rent deposit, but it was very apparent to that chickadee that that house is taken. So, last year they left a rent deposit. This year so far, they've not put a rent deposit down, but it's apparent they've chosen it. So watch for those little things to happen. It's pretty cool when it does. Nest building happens by the female. Dad is nothing but the cheerleader. It is her job to build the nest. He actually sits and just watches, make sure no predators come in. Basically, he's the cheerleader, and it's all on her to do the work. So once the nest is built, you'll know when the nest is finished, because it'll be a very pretty nest done mostly of dry grasses. At the very end, there'll be a very fine layer in the center of it. You'll definitely know the center of the nest has a finer, softer grass in it. And that's when you know that your nest is finished. Then one morning she'll lay an egg. Typically always happens in the morning. They lay that egg, then they're gone. They may hang around and watch it throughout the day. They'll lay one egg every day. They don't start nesting until they have a full clutch of eggs. Full clutch is 4 to 6 eggs. Average is 5 is what we typically see. But she will not start setting until she has all of those eggs laid. So what you're going to do is watch. So you watch one egg. A few days later, you look, there's 4 eggs. You look the next day, there's 5 eggs. You look the next day, there's still 5 eggs. You're going to count that as your first day of incubation. So the first day you notice that she has not added any more eggs, that's the day she starts setting on those. She's going to set on those for 12 to 14 days. You're going to, once a week, check on those eggs and just look to see that everything's going okay. If an egg were to break in there, just get it out the best you can. Just use a little plastic spoon and scoop it out the best you can so it doesn't lay there and decay. Once those hatch, if one of those eggs doesn't hatch, since she started setting on them all the same time, they should all hatch the same day. After 3 days, one of those eggs has not hatched. We would like you to reach in there, again, use a plastic spoon and take that egg that didn't hatch out of there. Mama has no way to get that egg out of there. So she's going to push it off to the side and it's going to lay there and decay, which can then bring bugs in, risks infecting the other babies. If a baby is to pass away in there, same thing. She can't get it out. She's just going to push it to the side. So we would like you to reach in there, get that baby out of there. Mama may yell at you when you're messing around there. They won't hurt you. They may fly over and kind of clack at you. They're not going to hurt you. You are actually helping them the success rate of those remaining babies is going to be better by you getting those either bad eggs or that dead baby out of there. It's not going to draw bugs or lay there and an infection or something spread to the other babies. So it's actually helping them by getting that out of the nest box for them. Once the babies will fledge about 18 days. So after about 10 days, we're not going to have you look in there anymore. We don't want to risk those babies fledging early. So at about 10 days, you're just going to stop looking, but you're going to try to keep an eye because, of course, you want to see when your babies leave the nest box. So I said about 10 days, but about 10 to 12. You can take your last peek at about 12 days. It'll be okay. What I would do at that point is just cover that front hole as you look that day. What I do is I have the top mount boxes, and I'll just take a picture with my cell phone from the top and cover the front hole so they don't leave early. And you can try to catch them fledge. Good luck. I've only once ever been able to see one baby fledge. They are very secretive in getting those babies out of the nest. So here's just a little chart showing the top left is hatch day. They're so tiny. 3 days old there. And then in the bottom, 10 days, and then 17 days. So an easy way to know when it's time to quit checking is when they display stranger danger. So every time you check, those little mouths are going to be open, begging you to feed them. They don't care who you are. They just want anybody to feed them. The first day you come and they have learned to fear you and those little mouths don't open, that's when you know it's time to quit checking, because they have figured out that you are not mama or daddy. So at that point, that's your last day of checking. They now know to fear you. So now you run the risk of them fledging early. So when that happens, you just take note of how many babies you still have alive. Usually that's all of them. Some years we do have. Last year was not a great year. A lot of people had unsuccessful hatches. We really don't know why. Some years are better than others, but most years, you'll hatch 4 or 5 and 4 or 5 will fledge. Last year was just really a tough year. So hopefully we got that out of the way. We have a good year this year. And then what I would like you to do is report back to me at the end of the season, and I'll show you a little chart, but basically the end of the season, just let me know. I had 3 clutches. I fledged 4 in the first one, 1 passed. I fledged 5 in the second one, had 6 eggs in the second one, and 5 fledged. Or it'll make more sense when I show you the chart. So a little bit about the fledging. So after the fledging, during the time they were in the nest box, both mom and dad were feeding. So dad was helping out during that time. One thing I will mention, when they were feeding, every time they went in, they came out with something in their beak. Every time the baby birds eat, the baby birds poop. And it's in a little membrane sac. You're going to be amazed how clean that bluebird nest is when you go to clean it out afterwards. So every time they take food in to feed them, mom or dad picks up a little sack of poop and brings it right out of the nest box with them. This is another call we often get. Parents worried because the Bluebird landlords are worried because they're seeing them take the food in, but they're not giving it to the babies. They're bringing it right back out. They're feeding them. They're just bringing the little sacks of poop out. So you're going to see both mom and dad in and out. If you miss the hatch, you're going to know when the hatch happens, because all of a sudden the activity, it's like a runway there, just in and out all day long. So, but now that they've fledged, now it's dad's job to do the feeding. He has to teach them to hunt. Mom's job is now to get ready for the next nest. She will raise 3 nests throughout the summer. This year we did have a few people, because we had such a long summer, we had a few people that actually had 4 nests this last summer. And occasionally we do see that. But so she's going to go on, she's going to start building a second nest. So as soon as they fledge, we want you to go in and clean that nest box out. Just take everything that's in the nest out, just get a little paintbrush and just sweep it out. Typically, that's going to be all you need to do, because it'll be nice and clean in there. Mom's going to either start building that one, or she may find, if you've got multiple nest boxes, she may move to a different one. Mine moved to a different box every time throughout the summer. They choose a different one. So she's going to start building that next one. Dad's going to start feeding the babies. Then he's going to teach them to come to your feeders. So you get to now watch the babies learn to hunt. You get to see them at the feeders. You'll see them go to the house where mom is. You'll see dad come and chase them off the house, because he doesn't want the predators to know where mom is. So a little tough love goes on there. But it's now dad's turn. Occasionally, you will see the young from the first clutch help feed the second clutch, which is kind of cool to watch when that happens. And so this is one, occasionally, if mom's at the feeder and one of the babies beg, you will see mom pick something up and feed them. But usually she just goes on, feeds herself, and then heads back to her job, all on dad. So we talked about the importance of monitoring. That is so several years ago, bluebirds were at risk until we got busy and started putting up nest boxes. So by monitoring, we can keep our eyes on it. And if we see numbers getting ugly again, we can do something before it gets that bad. So that's why we're asking you to report these numbers. So here in Maryland, we can keep an eye on what our numbers are looking like. House sparrows and starlings are 2 that should never be allowed to use nest boxes. If you're having problems with those, we'll help you through it. If you can't defeat them, sometimes you will actually just have to take your nest boxes down or put hole reducers on it and just let those boxes be for chickadees or smaller birds. But we don't want to increase the population on those birds. So we definitely do not want to allow those house sparrows. Starlings are easy, because if your bluebird box is sized correctly, a starling shouldn't be able to get in there. But we don't want to allow house sparrows definitely to nest in there. So we talked about we're going to monitor those and then record what you see. And this is just a sample of a data sheet. You can go on, you can just make something up. You can go on Google. There's not any formal type of sheet that we need, but basically we just want you to track. And what we want from you is how many eggs you had originally, how many you lost, and how many successfully fledged. And so we want that count for each of your nests. So if you only have, a few nest boxes, it's not a big deal. But if you were to be doing a big bluebird trail, you might want to create something a little more elaborate like this. But if you've just got 1 or 2 nest boxes, it's pretty simple to track that data. So the enemies. This is what I call parking lot birds. This is what you see flying around Lowe's. This is what you see in the parking lots. If you shop our LaPlata store, you'll notice we have a bluebird house out there. If you walk up to that bluebird house, you'll notice we have a little silver ring on it. No bluebird could fit in that. Only a chickadee could fit in that one, because we have house sparrows there at that store and we do not want to allow them to nest there. We don't want to increase the population, and they sure as heck would nest there. So we do have a house there. but they could not nest in it. We don't want to increase that population. That's the male on the left. That's the female on the right. You will know the difference if they nest in your box. It's a very sloppy nest. It will be made out of trash. A bluebird nest is a solid blue, whereas this is a speckled nest. But if you have any doubt before you destroy a nest, please send us pictures, bring us pictures. And if you have any nest, we don't want you to destroy a native bird's nest. So, make sure you are absolutely positive before you do something like that. And then the starling. That's another one that is a non-native species. But again, as long as you have the right size bluebird hole, they can't get into it. If you're not sure if your house is the right size hole, a simple fix is we have a little silver ring that you can just tack on the front that is the correct size hole. So if your hole's a little too big, or a squirrel or a woodpecker made that hole a little too big, you can add this to the front, which will resize it to bluebird size. So that will fix that. And those guys can't even get in there. So that's an easy solution for that. House sparrows and starlings are not protected by law. So what you do to resolve the problem is up to you. But the biggest thing is do not allow them. I usually recommend blocking the houses open in the beginning to try to discourage them. Once a bluebird lays their eggs, you can there's something called sparrow spookers. If you Google that, anybody can create a sparrow spooker just from straws and little iridescent streamers. So there's a lot of different options in that. And again, come in and talk to us and we can help you figure out your situation. But again, the right size hole for bluebirds is 1.5 inches. So if you already have a bluebird house, measure that hole and see what you've got. Okay, so then I'm going to take this off here and then I'm going to actually share with you some of the products here. So I'm going to start with the bluebird house. So when you're looking for a bluebird house, a couple things you're going to look for. This particular one opens at the top. Full screen so I can see you all. So opens at the top. Not all of them do. If they open at the top, awesome, because what I do is turn the flash on my phone, hold my phone over the top, snap a picture. That's the easy button, because when you put your bluebird house up, you want the hole right about 5 feet. At 5 feet, I can't see in there, so the phone helps me. You can also, a lot of houses open at the side, but even at the side, it's hard because they built that nest up so high that it's hard to see down in there. So I myself prefer the top opening to be able to look down and see down in on them. This particular one has a little fledgling ladder here. Get a wooden one. I think you'll be able to see it better. So this wooden one has a fledgling ladder here that is basically just a piece of wire. So it gives the bluebird babies something to grab onto when they go to leave the nest. You want to look for a roof on your bluebird house that has a little bit of overhang. You can see that one does. Also, a little bit of space here. It gets really hot here in Southern Maryland by the time they're doing that third nesting. As we learned in school, heat rises. So this top ventilation is going to let that heat, the cross ventilation is going to let that heat escape. In the bottom, there's 4 little holes cut out in the corners. If rain were to get in there, that's going to let that water escape. This has a bump out here on it. So if a woodpecker were to try to make that hole a little bit larger, that's going to prevent that from happening. A couple things there to look for. Mentioned if you already had houses. So if you have a house that squirrel or woodpecker's already been on, this is just a little block of wood that you can add to the front of that house to refurbish it a little bit. And then a little just metal circle here that you can add to the front to keep it from happening again, but we'll also resize that to the correct bluebird size. So we think of our bluebirds as these sweet little lovable creatures. But that chickadee gets in there and nests, and those chickadees are pretty sweet birds, right? We all love chickadees too. Guess what that bluebird's going to do if he wants that nest? He will kill that chickadee. So if a chickadee nests in there and that bluebird decides he wants in there, I recommend stopping in and getting this smaller chickadee reducer, pop it on the front temporarily to keep your chickadees safe. That will keep the bluebird from getting in there. After those chickadees only nest one time. They nest earlier in the summer too. The bluebirds nest first, then the chickadee will come in and nest. So if the bluebird has already nested, then they're looking for their second nesting site. And the chickadee's in that particular house, you want to keep that chickadee safe to finish that nesting. Pop that on there, wait for the chickadee to finish. You can pop it back off. You'll still have that nesting box to let the bluebird use the next time. But yeah, you can, your whole opinion of bluebirds can change if you lose that chickadee. So you got to try to keep them all safe. And we also have one for Carolina wrens because they'll use those too. So just keep those in mind that we do have them. Another one, if you are having problems with the sparrows, we have this little tunnel. For whatever reason, sparrows aren't a fan of going through these tunnels. No clue. But you can add these to the front of your houses. Bluebirds don't mind it. And this is another deterrent we have found helps if you do have house sparrows in your area. This is another way to try to defeat them. Okay, then we talked about mounting. So this pole, when you put it in the ground, you're just going to screw it in the ground. Once you do, it's going to put the top piece here right about 5 feet. This piece is just going to unscrew, and you're going to screw that onto the back of your bluebird house. Then you'll pop it right on the top. Makes it really easy when you want to clean your house. You can take it down. You get it up, and for whatever reason, your bluebirds, and we've had to do this with many customers, bluebirds just decided they would not nest there. It was as simple as just having them turn their bluebird house the other way. For some reason, the bluebirds then like the house. So this pole is pretty handy that way. And then this baffle is what's going to keep your snakes and your raccoons from getting into your bluebird house. So this is just a baffle we put on here. It'll keep snakes and raccoons out. It'll also keep squirrels out, but that's not our big predators of bluebird houses. We're not adding any food to this pole. A lot of people want to add food to try to entice them in. You'll actually discourage your bluebirds from nesting because they are afraid then that they're going to attract other birds in, and they don't want to nest somewhere where there's going to be a lot of activity. So the pole that has your house on it should not have any other food on it, only your house. And speaking of food, we talked about we want food that has already been shelled. Anybody that's been around a while will recognize this. It just came in yesterday. Nesting blend is back. We have not put it on the floor yet. It's a little early. Typically, we put it out in March. However, I'm sure if you walk into the store and whisper into one of our team members' ears that you heard nesting blend is back there, I'm sure they can make it appear for you. So we do still have some winter blend. There's not much winter blend left, but if your birds are eating winter blend like mine, I would run in and grab some real quick to get them through because they sure do love the winter blend. But nesting blend is here for those who are ready to get an early start on it. I like to mix both some winter blend and nesting blend for the first few weeks of March, just to give them a little of both. So it is here. It's not on the floor yet, but I'm sure if you could twist some arms to get some if you wanted. And then I'm going to share the favorite feeder at my house for my bluebirds is this one right here. Oh, opens at the top and the bottom, nice and easy to clean. I do believe this one is on our website too. Comes in blue or green. Has holes in the bottom here. And then I fill it with bug and bits, which is a combination of the bark butter bits and the mealworm. So it's got the suet nuggets and it's got the dry mealworms in it. And they eat that all year round. And then they can use that to feed to the babies too. Baby birds get all their moisture from their food. So the suet nuggets and suet is a great thing for the bluebirds to use to feed to the babies. So you want to make sure you're offering suet. A lot of people think of suet as only a winter food, but actually you want to keep suet out year round. But you're going to find as we go into the spring that you start going through suet faster than you have been in the winter. And we hear that a lot. Why are they going through the suet so much quicker come March and April? And that's because that's what they're feeding their young. And then another good option is just a basic tray feeder. This one I've got a weather guard on. You've looked at the weather forecast for the next week. You're going to want weather guards on everything you've got. In a tray feeder, you can put a little bit of everything. As I'm filling my feeders, I just throw a partial scoop of all my feed that I'm putting in all my feeders in there. So just a basic tray feeder. Anybody can eat from a tray feeder. So it's a good feeder. And then another favorite is just this simple little feeder. You can use the quick bites in it. Anybody that's tried those, it has the bark butter in it. The bark butter we think of as using on the trees, but the bluebirds struggle to cling. They're not the best at clinging. So with a feeder like this, the quick bites can be dropped right in them. And then in the other side, I add the bark butter bits or the bug and bits or the nesting blend. So it gives you a little bit of variety there. And if squirrels are a problem, we have the quick bites in hot pepper too. Okay, so with that, what questions do we have, Christine?
Oh, a lot of things related to what you were talking about. You were showing the pole that you attached the bluebird house to. Judy had asked, is it true that bluebirds prefer the opening to be facing east?
Good question. Actually, I didn't cover that. So we used to say that, but we've realized more important than that is that we want the opening to be facing an open spot. So we want the birds, when they get ready to leave the box, they're going to pop their head out, look for safety, make sure there's not a raptor or somebody out there, and then they're going to fly. So you want the nest box, you want a tree or bush 20 to 30 feet away, because when those babies leave, they're not going to be able to fly well. So they want to be able to get them there for safety quickly. So you want something nearby, but you want the opening looking out into a clear spot. So it's not as important as to which way it faces as it is to make sure that they get a clear opening or a clear view into an open space.
Okay. It's mentioned the bush that was close by, for the babies to go into. Sherry had said that she loved watching the parents feed the babies on a long branch. However, that tree unfortunately had to be removed. What can she use to substitute for a long branch to encourage the fledglings to feed near the feeders?
He's grabbing something, hang on. So if you have our pole system, that's one option, but the poles, the triple, to put the branches in. Yeah. Think like me, Chip. Come on. Yeah. Okay, so if you have our pole system, we've got a couple things. This slides onto our pole system. So you can see. And then you can actually cut natural branches and put into this. So you would actually have real branches on your pole system. Anybody who has added this to their pole system will back me up that the activity they've seen at their pole system once they added natural branches increased significantly. So then another option, if you've got our pole system, is this piece that just this guy is a perch that just twists onto our pole system. And so you can see that in there or not? Can you see it? Okay. So that twists on. So I've got these on all of my feeding stations. So you can add this onto your bird feeding. You can have this where you have your house, but I wouldn't put any food on this. But I wouldn't encourage you to put it on the house if you're wanting them to feed the babies. So if you're wanting it for feeding the babies, I would put it on your feeding station. But if you wanted to have it on the one with your house so the daddy can sit and hang out, it's a good option. Because like I said, if you're putting it here for the baby, dad's just going to kick the babies to the curb because he doesn't want them telling where mom is. And if you are putting it on your feeding station, I mentioned those little bites. They can also be popped in these leaves as another way to feed those pick bites too.
Had shown the one feeder that had the two spots, they were blue, because you were just, that you had put that little pouch in just now. Talking about you're feeding live mealworms, should it be done at the same time each day?
Yeah, so if you're feeding live mealworms, I recommend doing it at the same time every day so that you're kind of building a pattern with the birds. What I do is come out the same time, yell, Mama Blue, Papa Blue. Hang on one second. Also have a little bell, a birdie bell that you can come out and ring. So the birds learn to come to the birdie bell. And you would only ring this when you're bringing the live mealworms. If you can whistle, you whistle when you come out, but you only do those things when you have the live mealworms. I do the live mealworms, AM and PM, and then call them Mama Blue, Papa Blue, and they know that's when the good stuff's coming.
Okay, back to talking about boxes. When would you set up the sparrow spooker? Is it after the first egg is laid?
Exactly, yes. After that first egg is laid, a bluebird will not abandon their baby or their eggs. So that's why you want to set it up after that first egg.
Okay. And how do you know when they are fledged enough to start cleaning out the box? Like, when are they not coming back in?
As soon as they've left the box, they have fledged. They have no way to get back in there. And you will know when they've fledged because that activity will have been just like zoom, zoom, zoom all day long. And all of a sudden you look out and it's like a ghost town one morning. And you will know. Anybody that's had bluebirds and has been watching them knows exactly what I'm talking about. You look out one morning and it's your heart just drops like my babies are gone. You just, you know, and you go out and look and they're gone. But they have no way of getting back in the nest. Mom and dad aren't coming back. If they're coming back, it's because they're already nest shopping again. So you can help them out by getting that box cleaned out and ready again. They don't want to reuse that box because of bacteria and that. They need a clean box. If they were to reuse the nest, what they would do is build a brand new one on top of it to make sure it's clean. And when they do that, now they've put that new nest too close to the hole, and you're going to risk those new babies falling out of the nest.
How close can you put the bluebird box to your house?
They really don't seem to care. We have had people, unfortunately, who have had boxes right up on their deck, on their front porch, places where we really wouldn't recommend them that they have nested in. So, you know, as long as it's a safe place, it doesn't seem to matter.
Getting back to the stand right behind you that has the baffle and the, you know, the bird. Yeah. How much space do you need between the house and the baffle?
Oh, good question. So you want about 4 feet between this and anything. What we want to make sure is that when a snake, between the house and the baffle, sorry about that, you want about 1 inch because you want that baffle to be able to wobble. Okay, so you just want enough room that it's going to move a little bit. But between the pole setup and anything else, you want about 4 feet because you don't want to, snakes can come up and bridge over, and you want to make sure they're not going to be able to come up and, you know, come up on something else and bridge across. No voice.
Scrolling back up to just make sure I didn't miss anything. Yes, the other comment was by Kathleen, and she said, good luck to everyone tomorrow with the backyard bird count. So that'll segue us into, or have you said everything you want to?
Yeah.
Okay, so tomorrow does start the great backyard bird count. And when I sent everybody the link today, I included a link to that. So can you explain to us what that is?
Yeah, so hopefully you got that link. If not, it's on our Facebook page. If you've got our email, it's from there. Basically, it's your opportunity to be citizen scientists. So you will go in, click on that link, and it's very self-explanatory. But basically, you're going to spend 15 minutes in your backyard counting your birds. And then you're going to submit all the species that you have seen. It basically just like I was talking about with the bluebirds, it helps us keep a look at the numbers and see what our numbers are looking like. If we, you know, have, you know, we talk a lot about our Save the Songbird movement and our concerns with the loss of songbirds. So it kind of plays hand in hand with that, you know, watching, you know, how our bird population is looking. But just pop in there, do it. You can do it multiple times. Do it at different times, but basically for 15 minutes, 15-minute increments, you count the birds in your yard and record them. It's very easy to do. You can get the kids involved. You can enter it right through Maryland, the Maryland app, or through eBird. Get your birds counted.
Okay, so you can do that on your computer, but you had just mentioned that there are also apps that you could get on a smartphone.
Yeah.
And that's the eBird and Merlin, which is really a great tool to ID birds.
Yeah,
For
Merlin
people who
app
are
is
newer to it.
great for IDing. It does a really good job, but like I was saying, always when you get that ID with Merlin, just double check. When you see that bird, just kind of look. If it's a bird you've never heard of before, do a quick Google or a field check and make sure this bird, isn't a bird in the Caribbean or South Africa, or make sure it is something that really should be here. Double check that it's something typical before you sound the alarm that, oh my gosh, look at this cool bird that I have. If you're not sure, send us a picture of it. We can kind of try to help you with that ID and that if it doesn't make sense, Merlin's ID. Sometimes Merlin ID, there's a few of them. It's a new app, so there's still bugs to be worked out, but it really does a pretty good job.
Great. So over the next 4 days, starting tomorrow, it goes from the 18th to the 21st, is when the researchers are really hoping people will, input the data, right? So they get a good snapshot of what things look like right now.
Absolutely, yes.
People are welcome to input that anytime, right? Like if you're just watching birds, you can put your eBird data in there.
Oh yeah, yeah. Any time of the year, recording your eBird data is great, and it's a big help. And especially during breeding season as well. We have the Maryland breeding project going on, which is another plus. So that's eBird is just, my recommendation is to enter it through eBird because of the breeding project too that Maryland is doing as well. So that way it's getting counted everywhere.
It's nice that you're such a good resource for people. Like you've mentioned a few times that they can call you or, bring something, show up and you can help them with any of their birding problems. So I appreciate that. That's really great. I don't see any more questions. I just want to mention that our next program will be 1 month from today on March 17th. And that one will be Who's Nesting in My Backyard? So we'll expand beyond just the bluebirds and talk about everybody else who might be out there. So that'll be great. I want to thank all of you for coming tonight, especially anybody who's new to our program. I appreciate that Barb has been with us for a long time on a continuous basis. And I am happy to, kind of help amplify your voice on, getting the information out. So thank you to Barb and to all of our watchers.
Thank you.